Now, health experts and a cross-party coalition are calling for urgent government action to get rid of cancer-causing nitrites from bacon, ham and other processed meats. Let's head to Buenos Aires, of all places, and cardiologist for the NHS, Dr. Aseem Malhotra. Aseem, I'm not going to ask what you're doing in Buenos Aires. It sounds very, very dramatic being out there. What's the problem with these nitrites?
Yeah, so basically these have been added to processed meats, as you mentioned already, Steve, particularly bacon and ham for many, many years. And 2015, the World Health Organization announced that they could attribute 34,000 deaths due to colorectal cancer globally because of processed meats. Now, when you look at what specifically is the issue, red meat is not the problem. It's what's added to these meats, which are these nitrites, which are chemical additives really put there to preserve the meat. But we now know that what happens when you cook, for example, bacon and you consume it, it gets converted to something called nitrosamines. And these chemicals have been directly linked to cancer. And the evidence is overwhelming. So I think what we need to do really is eliminate it from the food supply. In Britain alone, Steve, 6,600 cases of colorectal cancer a year can be directly attributed to processed meat. And there is an alternative. There is other brands. There's something called Naked Bacon, which uses a fruit and spice extract from the Mediterranean to preserve the meat. So there is an alternative. The technology's there now. So why not just get it out of the food supply? And we'd save many lives and many cases of cancer if we do that.
I guess the problem is going to be slightly that these natural alternatives, A, may not be as effective, and B, may be more expensive. So if we want to be healthier, we're going to end up paying the price as a result.
Yeah, it's a good question. There isn't any evidence that they're not less effective. They are just as effective. There's not been any issues or problems with the alternative preservatives. In fact, Parma ham doesn't use any nitrites. And, we've been eating Parma ham and imported it from Mediterranean countries such as Italy for decades, and they have never used nitrites in Parma ham. So I think that argument really doesn't stand up to scrutiny when you look at it in detail. In terms of the price, Stevie, that's a good point. I don't think there's much difference, a little bit more expensive perhaps, getting these sort of alternative nitrite-free bacon. But, ultimately it's about looking after your health. And I think people realize, and if there's a big public awareness about the fact that nitrites are harmful, then hopefully also the meat industry will adopt and change, and they themselves can use the newer technology to avoid putting nitrates in the red meat.
It begs the question, though, Aseem, if we now know for certain that these nitrites in processed meats are dangerous, and we know there are healthy alternatives that are available and do the same job, why are these just not being outlawed?
Well, I think it needs to be highlighted like we're doing today. I think they've kind of got away with it for a while. The meat industry have also denied the link, or at least undermined the link between nitrites. That's part of the problem. I mean, we've got this whole issue about what big tobacco did, Steve. We mustn't forget that. It took 50 years between the links between smoking and lung cancer were published in medical journals before we actually got any effective regulation introduced and reduced the consumption of smoking. And that was because the tobacco industry had really a corporate playbook where they denied the link between smoking and lung cancer, even co-opted scientists to say that there was no link. So I think we've got to look at parallels between the meat industry and tobacco and actually just call them out on it and say, listen, enough is enough. It's very clear there's a link between these consumption of these types of processed meats and cancer. And we can help people and lead healthier lives and still enjoy their bacon. Listen, I enjoy eating red meat, and I know it can be very much part of a healthy diet. It's very nutritious. So it's not about demonizing red meat. It's about making our food safer to eat.
OK, well, look, you raised some very interesting points. What are you doing in Argentina?
I'm actually on vacation, but I was, called to public health duty and population health to do the interview. So it's about sort of 6 in the morning over here.
Yeah, well, make sure you bring me your present back, please, Aseem. We'll see you when you get back.